good day. You find the Unfriendly Skies, Tironan. Today we have I believe it's 1101. $10.92, I believe. Never mind. And I had been doing some research on revolver cannons because they fascinate me. And that is, of course, the Mauser 213C, which is the mother of all of these. And the M39 cannon. And there is almost no research available on the Aden or DEFA cannons, which I find very hard to believe. Maybe they're still classified, I don't know. But to explain these things, you take a, simple revolver pistol, right, as your basis of your action, basically how these things work. And you call it a cassette because it's not really, that's what they call the revolver portion of the cannon. And when you finish with that, it's got to do a number of things. Obviously, the pilot isn't back there pulling a lever that revolves the chamber and brings the next round in line and does all the other things. So you take what's basically a revolver action, and now it has to do a whole series of things. You have to have what's called a forcing cone, because you're dealing with 20 and 30 millimeter shells. For those of you not familiar, a 30 millimeter shell makes a 50 caliber round look like a BB. So you got a lot of pressure, needless to say. If you can't contain the pressure, the gun blows up. All right, so you're talking about a fairly thick chamber and wall for each of the 5 chambers. And then you have a forcing cone, and that's what actually rams into the back of the barrel and keeps a good tight seal there so you don't erode the barrel and the cassette itself. So you're kind of trying to contain the pressure with that, which means that the cylinder, on top of having to rotate, also has to move backwards and forwards. And not only does it have to do this, it has to index, and then you have to have mechanisms in there to feed and to extract rounds. And all this is done by a gas operation. So you have a gas port, and every that feeds off of the firing position. And the gas channel then takes the energy and hits a gas piston, which provides the mechanical impetus, and it has to take the motion and turn it into both rotary, back and forth, and feeding mechanical forces on various parts. And I'm sitting there looking at all this and thinking, how did you ever make this thing stinking work? But mind you, that it was the basis of 6 different gun families. Orkalan is still manufacturing weapons based on it. Giat has moved away from it and now gives you an idea of the complexity. Giat's new cannon actually provides a motor-driven variant of the revolver cannon. It doesn't use a gas, which gives you an idea of just what they thought of it as a long-term proposal. Now, that being said, The Defa cannons have been in production for 50 years, but their evaluation in the long term was they were never going to get the reliability out of the cannon that they wanted until they changed out from gas to electric motors. So it's kind of a mixture of the Gatling slash revolver cannon. Aden is still marketing them very successfully. The Swiss have the KCA family. The Swedes have the KCA family, and the Swiss still sell the Orkalan version of it, and the U.S. still produces the M39 in upgraded fashions for various applications, including, I believe the biggest one right now is for motor patrol boats and area defense, fishery patrol, anywhere that needs a pair of light 20 millimeter autocannons that really get the job done, and boy, do they get the job done. They find applications in helicopters to this day. But when you look at the complexity of it, you just are staggered that anybody ever got this thing working. You know? When you look at gun design, you know, this is a very mature field, right? I mean, you don't see people coming out with radically new designs in guns anymore. When they do design something, they go back to review all the different types of gun designs out there that actually work well, and they choose, well, we'll take this from this, and this from this, and this from this, and this from this. There hasn't been a really innovative gun design since the ARs or AR-15 Stoner's design, and you see it everywhere. Kalashnikov's design, and even in that, when you go look at it, you can see how this is where I want the gas port. This is how I want the action to run. This, and they can trace the direct linear precedence to designs by Tironan and so forth and so on. You know, there's no secrets in the gun making industry anymore. It's just how well can you make them, functionalize your design, and make it work smoothly and well. The revolver cannon, in a lot of ways, was the last of these. And actually the Gatling gun, when they went through the final iteration of it. But even it, literally the first working model of the M61 Gatling gun, they actually made it work with an old 1960s era, 1970s era Gatling gun. You know, just taking the links and cams and everything off of it and how it works. This was a wildly different design. And man, I got to going through it and tracing out the actions and everything with it. And I was just like, amazing. Now, it took them really, production of the M39, they didn't have the final perfected version where they were really happy with the design and saying, yeah, this will absolutely work, you know, 99.999% of the time like you want in a military weapon. You'll hear people talk about, hey, you really, really want, you know, this and that and the other thing in a military weapon. Well, what they want in a military weapon more than anything else is reliability. Extra reach is nice. Extra power is nice. You know, you can design those things in, but what you really want out of them is them to work first time, every time. And oh, that is so hard to do. I thought it was interesting, for whatever it was worth. And the long story made very, very long was that is the cannons that you find in so many of the Tier 8, 9, and 10 aircraft here, and some of the 8s in World of Warplanes. All right. So, what is this all about? Well, got to replenish the coffers, got to finish specking out some aircraft, and this is one of the prime contenders. In fact, one of my obvious targets to spec this aircraft out, the MiG-30. And it is the best turn and burn in the game at this point, bar none. And you would have thought it would have been something else, but it's this. And you never have a question about what you're supposed to do with this. The thing about this aircraft is you want to find the biggest furball you can, where you have a good chance of winning, and head straight into it. Because that's where this plane excels. All right, anything 2,700 feet in, divide that by 3 if you want meters, by the way, is your meat. It's got really reliable 23 millimeter cannon. There's another cannon family that we really should have gone over more, but I have not done so yet. And it's got 3 of them. Gives you 510 DPS, but they're relatively flat shooting, well behaved cannon. And that makes them so lovely for what you want to do. They've got a relatively long burst length on them, as you can tell. And except for M39s, I think these are the best guns in the game. Really would have liked a 4th cannon on it. To my mind, it would have made it just about perfect. But other than that, you can't really say too much. I mean, it's not the fastest aircraft, but you can always find a furball. And you don't have a whole lot of problem getting behind an aircraft. It cannot get away from you unless you run into an ultra-spec another Yak 30. They're not going anywhere. You're going to be on their tail. And the answer to anything is twist and turn and get the other guy involved in a turning contest. Well, it's not terribly difficult, is it? I don't know what you want out of an aircraft, but this seems to provide everything you could possibly need. This and the 1101 are, in my opinion, the best aircraft in the game. But it does lend itself to yet one last thing, and I want to leave you with while we're talking today. There's only, in my opinion, maybe other people have them. I'd like to hear them, because I'm not always right. Is when you're speccing an 1101, you get it all ultraed out, and you spec a MiG-30 and you've got it all ultraed out. Is there any use for any other plane in the fighter realm in World of Warplanes? Because right now, there isn't. Now, I may be full of it and just don't know what I'm talking about. Sometimes that happens. But from what I can see, You know, you're sure not going to do ground attack with either of those aircraft, right? But you already have that well covered in the IL-40P and the 1102B. And I'm going to urge again, they need to find roles for their other fighters in this game. They have to have something that isn't covered by the other two. Well, you have the XF-90, which is the manned missile from hell. But you know what I'm talking about here. Your thoughts are asked for here. Okay? There are other aircraft that are fun, the F-86, but they need to fix the guns. The LA-15 is just as a great aircraft, but I'm not sure where it fits compared to the other aircraft. It's another 9.2 fighter out there, right? There's plenty of them. And it makes me wonder if they thought through their end game very well. Something to consider. Listen, thank you for spending some time with me today. I appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.